Hello, everyone. My name is Soaib Rashid. I am the co-founder and CEO of the Tetraverse company. The other co-founder is my twin brother, Sabir Rashid. He is in Europe right now, so he couldn't attend the conference, but he's with us on Zoom. Sabir, can you say something, see if we can hear you?
Hello, mic check. Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me?
Right now, but I think he'll... So we wanted to give a special thanks to Deborah McGinnis. So we created the Tetraverse company about 3 years ago. Before that, we had a company called Tetra Game Studios, and we created a completely different game, but it has a similar back then, but it was Tetra, and it was more of a grid-based grid domination game with strong influences from chess. But during like the COVID lockdowns, a lot of people my age who used to collect Pokemon growing up got back into the hobby and started collecting cards again as adults. So to incorporate the demand for trading cards, we evolved what was once Tetra into Tetraverse. So what is Tetraverse? Tetraverse is a universe that contains the planet Akira, where our story takes place. The inhabitants of Akira harness the magical power of resources scattered throughout the continents to master elemental abilities. Tetraverse TCG is a collectible trading card game that utilizes knowledge graphs and ontologies to organize our card database and automate the generation of trading cards. In this turn-based strategy game, players place equivalent tamers and anima, upgradable structures, mana-generating landscape, and hidden trap cards to control the playing field. The playing field can be either a game board or multiple playmats to create a grid for players to place their units and move their units along the board. So how to play? So there's 3 phases of the game. So every turn there's a start phase, placement phase, and attack phase. The initial setup, you draw 6 cards, and each deck has a castle card. There's a castle card somewhere. If anyone has Infernal Alcazar, that's a castle card. I think it's in the back over there. So basically, you place your castle card, and then every turn you have untap, upkeep, draw, similar to Magic the Gathering. So untap, you untap all mana and units. Upkeep, you add or remove damage, and you apply status buffs and ailments. And then passive abilities are also applied on the upkeep phase. Passive abilities are abilities that don't require any mana to play. Each card have a passive ability, it's automatically activated. So in the draw, you just draw a card from your deck. Then the placement phase. So cards cost mana to play. So if you guys have Tamer Anima card or Landscape card, you'll see that there's some mana on the bottom of the card. So you need to have that specific mana in your mana pool, and you need to tap that mana in order to place the card onto the playing field. And every turn, you can only place 1 mana into your mana pool. And then the attack phase consists of the movement and ability phase. So the mobility is a stat. So tamers and animas, if you have a tamer or anima, you can see the stat on the left-hand side. There's health, dexterity, mobility, and intellect. So the mobility of the unit determines how many tiles they can move in 1 turn. And then the ability similarly requires mana cost, which is called ability cost. So you need enough mana in your mana pool to play abilities to attack or heal your units or attack enemy units. So our database is organized into ontologies. We have the upper ontology and then the modular ontology for all the card classes, and then status effects. So I'll just go over this quickly. This might be kind of hard to read, but what we want to get out of the upper ontology is that it's divided into game components and concepts. So game components are actually physical pieces or cards that you place on the board. So if you place a card, that's a game component. Or if you place tokens on the card to signify status ailments or damage they're taking, those are all game components. While concepts are like statistics and range. So concepts aren't the actual physical pieces, but they make up the cards. Then we have ontologies for each of our card classes. So what makes the anima ontology unique is that anima can manifest into other stronger anima, similar how Pokemon can evolve into stronger forms. So manifestation can only be done by anima. The tamers are also beings. Animas are beings. So anima and tamers are beings, and anima tamers are also units. Structure is the other unit. Structures consist of buildings, castles, and towers. Like I mentioned earlier, you start with a castle on the playing field. If that castle is destroyed, you can no longer place any additional units, but you don't lose the game. You lose a game when you don't have any remaining units in play. So even if someone destroys your castle, your units that you already played can potentially destroy their castle and the rest of their units and still win the game. So there's either the strategy of attacking enemy units or going for the castle and attacking the castle so they can't place additional units. And towers are similar to tamers in the sense that they have active abilities and can attack enemies within range. However, they're immobile structures are mobile units. And then buildings are structures that increase the stat of your units in play. And then we have landscapes, which generate mana, and it reduces the mana cost of adjacent units. We have events, which are made up of enchantments and traps. Traps are played face down, so your opponent doesn't know exactly what card you placed. They know it might be a trap or a card in stealth. Stealth is a passive ability that tamers or anima would have, that until they're attacked or until they attack, you keep that card face down, so they're not sure what exactly you have. And traps are generated when an enemy comes within range, and if you have enough mana in your mana pool, you can, on your opponent's turn, activate the trap and attack them, basically. And then enchantments, if anyone is familiar with instants and magic, so enchantments are like spells that can be cast at any time, anyone's turn, as long as you have the cost, as long as you have enough mana to cast that spell. So these are called events because the cards themselves, there are several event cards over here. If anyone has, I think, Brilliant Incandescence or Whirlpool, those are both event cards. So the illustration on the events are actually taken from our story. So we want to create an immersive story that it's not just random cards. If you read the story, then you can actually find that event and connect with it in another way. So items are divided into equipment and consumables. So consumables are basically like potions, for example. You use the consumable and then you vanquish it. So our vanquish realm are like a discard pile. So consumables are used right away. They're consumed by units, and equipment are attached to beings. So anima or tamers can attach equipments to strengthen statistics. The equipments, however, have a dexterity cost. So if the unit can only, if the unit has a dexterity of 9, then the total sum of the dexterity cost must be less than or equal to 9 for them to equip those items. And we have our element ontology, which is basically the mana. We have 12 different mana. The mana are divided into 3. There's core mana, derived mana, and special mana. I won't go too in depth on that. And then we have status effects, which like burn or death affect the units per turn. We have a statistics ontology, which, as I mentioned earlier, units have health, dexterity, intellect, mobility, and then there's also ranges based on each ability has its own range. So if an enemy unit is 3 tiles away and your range is 2, then you can't reach that enemy, so you can only attack enemies within range. And then we have the ability ontology. So as I mentioned earlier, there's passive abilities and active abilities, and then structures have upgrades which increase the stats of structures specifically. And like I mentioned before, passive abilities are inherent and they don't require any mana, while active abilities require a mana cost to play. And then we have our ontology, which has all the different types of cards and additional other game components. So our knowledge representation so we represent our knowledge through knowledge bases in RDS. I'm gonna open up the GitHub. So over here on this side, we have all the different knowledge bases. So for example, an anima ability, such as Char over here, it does 1 single target damage to enemies within range, and it has a range of 1. Its target is a targeted enemy. Target could be a targeted ally if it's like a healing spell or something like that. But this target for the attack Char is specifically for enemies. The status effect it does is burn, so it does 1 damage over the next 2 turns, in addition to the 1 single target damage. And then in order to burn, you require a coin flip condition. So if it's heads, then burn is true. And then the cost of that ability is 1 pyro mana, and the intellect requirement to play that ability, the anima or being who plays that ability must have an intellect of at least 2. So as you can see, we have KBs for basically everything. If I go on the card KB for tamers, you can see that we have the health stats, intellect stats all defined over here. So if we want to change it, we don't have to go and physically change it on the card. We just change this value right here, and then we update it. So some of the early versions of the card are different than the later versions. Like originally we had health with a magnitude of 10 to the 2. So it's like 100 or 2000, but now we just simplified it. So it's 100 would be 1 and 2000 would be 20. And this is the same magnitude that Magic the Gathering uses. And it was actually recommended by someone on Severe's team in RPI. And we thought it was a good idea because there's complexities to the game, so we want to keep it kind of as simple as we possibly can. All right, let's get back. So then these slides are showing some of the RDF for specific classes. And then we have like a description from the story. So with regard to the capital city of Frosten, entire civilization made of ice-like fortifications. Okay, so as you can see, the cards are created through knowledge graphs. And the values are manually inputted by us, but we believe that we could do that generatively also. For now, we do it manually, and then we run it through a balancing algorithm, which gives each card a score, and then that score is weighed against the scores of every other card. So then if the abilities, balance, and everything makes a card overpowered, you'll see it on the top of the balancing algorithm, and then we can tell if a card is overpowered or not. But typically, like, there's higher level cards, so we'd expect the scores to be higher for that card, so then we can weigh it against other cards of that rarity, and then we can balance it, and we do the changes manually after balancing, but this is also something that we could potentially generate automatically, generatively.
Right. So
we take our ontologies and knowledge graphs and we load them to a triple score, which is then reasoned, and we use Sparkle to query that data for the relevant information, and that is sent to the that generates a JSON, which is sent to the card generator. Then the card generator is a script that we input into Photoshop, and we also include the layout elements and the artwork. So the artwork is the illustration that the artist does, and then the layout elements are the border, and it's also the color of the layout elements determined by the mana type of the card. So the layout elements are adjusted based on the card specifically, and then we have the output, which is the card art, the hollow foil blackout, and the texture blackout. So let me go into the blackouts a little bit. So we require these blackout cards to tell the printing company what we want to be foiled and what we want to be non-foiled. So over here, whatever is blacked out doesn't get the foiling. So wherever is transparent will get the foiling. And similarly, we have texture files. So the texture file has either value 0 or 1. So the white values is 0 and the blacks are 1. So wherever there's a black pixel, that pixel gets physically textured by the printing company. So if you look at the back of your cards, shine to the light, you can see where it says Tetraverse, you can see that there's actually texture on the card. So if there's any light reflecting, you can see that. That's a little hard to see. That's done through something like this. And here's an example to show that over here we saw that this is the regular and this is the reverse. Well, the regular, all this is hollow over here, and for the reverse, the anima is hollow. So in our booster packs, we have at least one reverse hollow per pack. And then there's an additional chase card per pack that could be a reverse hollow or it could be a higher rarity. And so collectors who will binder their collection, they might want to put all reverse hollows instead of the regular, more common ones. We have a link of the actual card. I'm gonna avoid going on those links for now. We have this bubbly on card, so you can kind of see the foiling on it. And I'll quickly play. Oh wow, I'm running out of time. I'll quickly play this. So this is a sample automation of our of the script we sent to Photoshop. So we used to do this manually. So and by scripting it instead, you can see how much time we save on these trivial tasks. So it takes all the layout elements and then we tell them where to go. We decided to use this because it's an anima card, and then the color is green because the palette is for the nature element type. It's just doing 3 manifestations right now. So the first one was Tornut, this is Tortut, and then it evolves into Tortosaur. Third stage is a full art. These are half arts, meaning it's the whole card doesn't have the artwork, but half of the card does. And then the ability section has its own separate area. And then this is a full art card, which is the manifestation of the second form. And these are somewhat higher rarities. And in our sample print run, all of our full arts have texture as well. The texture is really sought after by collectors because it makes the card more enjoyable to look at. And our printing company happens to do some of the best texture that we've compared with a lot of other games. So they actually reached out to us. We switched over to this printing company afterwards because before we were going through a middleman, but now we're outsourced. Now we're going directly to the printing company. And then it creates the blackout files as well. We have a quick sales report just to show, like, is this profitable? Is this, just a waste of time, or are we just doing it for fun? For the first year, it was completely conceptual. So our costs were pretty low. We were just kind of figuring it out. We weren't making any money because we weren't selling anything. But then in 2023, we started developing samples and we started a Patreon. So we have supporters from the community, the trading card community, donating every month in exchange for cards like these. A lot of these cards are actually Patreon cards. If you look at the corner right here, there's a little Patreon symbol. It's pretty small. So if it's a Patreon card, it has that Patreon set symbol. We've increased the font size over time. So with every print run, we look at it and we're like, what's wrong? Like, people can't read it. Okay, we'll increase the font. But there's only so much real estate on the card, so we have to kind of designate everything appropriately. And then in 2024, we started making more money, but our costs actually increased because our printing costs increased for the set that we released because it was a much larger set. And then additionally, our costs increased because the quality of our artwork also increased over time. So a lot of the artwork that we bought in this initial period, we actually didn't end up using because we wanted to hold a certain specific standard for our artwork. So we have some amazing artists who only cost $100 to $200 per illustration, but the name brand artists cost they cost like $900 to $1,100 per illustration. That really adds up, but they also bring other value to the company. So for example, this artwork right here, with the background and everything, this was it cost us about $660 at the time, but this artist became more sought after and had higher demand. So she started charging up to $1,600. We're like, oh, that's a little bit out of range. So we got to be smart about, especially at this stage, if the money's coming directly out of our pockets, we got to be smart about which artists to hire, all that. So we're focused on collectability at this stage. The playability factors will be more of our focus once we do some testing and really try to bring the players in. But for collectability, there's a lot of factors that go into what makes the card collectible. So there's a rarity, which how rare is it? How hard is it to pull? So if it's really easy to pull, there must be a lot of those, so it's not very rare. So population count goes hand in hand with the pull rates. So for our company, we try to keep the population count at a minimum. We try to avoid overprinting. So there's not one card that's flooded in the market and then the value goes down. Additionally, the grading condition. So 2 of the 3 major grading companies grade Tetraverse cards currently. So Beckett, BGS, and CGC grade Tetraverse, and PSA will grade Tetraverse once we release this core set that we did pre-orders for in April. So the condition of the card, if you look at a card, it's based on the corners. So this is how they judge the grade. They look at the corners, they see if there's any whitening or the condition of the corners. They look at the edges. They look at the surface of the card, front and back, if there's any dings or anything, bends, anything like that. And then they look at the centering. So when the card is printed and cut, sometimes it's not cut perfectly centered. So the grade of the card is determined by those 4 factors. The value, as I mentioned earlier, the artist and artwork also determine a big collectability factor. Some of the higher end artists like Alinari, who drew this, people joined the game and bought cards just because she's an artist. So she's done art for other big games, or well, not up and coming games. And then the character itself, there's different Amari Gold cards. So someone might have a favorite character and it also coincides with story element. So if they have a specific character they like, they might collect that card. So that has to do with collectability. The card quality, as you can see, the texturing, and not everyone does that. And on those textures cards specifically, you can see like the cards are pretty thick. So collectors take all that into consideration. They feel the card, and if they don't like how it feels, then maybe they don't want it. Card sets and collections. So we release different sets, and people like to fill up their binders to complete sets. So there's a collectability factor in that. And then the value and sales history. So basically last sold prices and is this card even available for sale? All determine the value of the card. But ultimately, the holder of the card determines the value. So someone might offer you $1,000 for one of the cards in these rooms, but to you, maybe it's worth $1,500. You say, no, I don't want to sell it. So the collector ultimately, as a community, determine the values of the specific cards. And then the age of the card. So a lot of the Pokemon cards that are the higher end Pokemon cards are worth so much because of the condition and the age. So the first edition Shadowless Charizard in a PSA 10 is, I think, like sold over $1 million before. Now the market went down a little bit. Yeah.
So are you keeping all of this metadata in knowledge graph as well? You have an ontology for that?
We have certain factors encoded in the RDF, but we don't have all of it. But it's something that we could do. We have the artists associated with each card. And then costs. So these are the main costs. Printing costs is a big one. That includes texturing and then foiling and then international shipping. Texturing is a cost that we learned how the printing company does the texturing, and we believe that we can generate our own textures and then we'll save that cost. And yeah, it'll actually save like 15 to 20% of our printing costs. So that's something that we can improve on to save costs in the future. Right now, we only have so much time. So for them to do the printing, to do the texturing saves us a lot of time, but it ends up costing us like $40 per card. And then we don't have any AI artwork because the collector base is against AI illustrations. If the game has AI for their main artwork, then they'll just look at it, they can kind of tell, and they just reject it right away. So we don't want any AI, we want it actually done by artists. And similar with writing, you can generate a story, but the writer brings more value than just the story. Advertising costs right now are pretty minimal. As you see, we're not doing any crazy sales yet, but this is a cost that we intend to increase like way up there if we really want to get the game out there. And then shipping and packaging costs, any retail has to do it. And right now I spend the time, it takes a lot of time to like properly package it so the cards don't get damaged. That cost isn't too high, but I guess it adds up when you're shipping thousands of cards. And then for future work, our ontology system is built for Tetraverse, but essentially it could be built for any game. So we believe that it has value to make game creation, not just trading card games, but in general, any game creation much easier, and then also integratable to different platforms. So we have a physical trading card game, but we coded it in a way that we can import it to Unity and have a digital game, which we actually want to use for tournaments, so we can target a lot more people. It's hard for people to join tournaments if they have to travel. Then the tournament costs $10, and you win what, like $1,000 or something if you win. But then your travel expenses is like $800, and more people win. But I mean, sometimes the tournaments also host exclusive cards, so there is some value to going to those events. But we believe that if we can do it digitally, then we can get testing and tournaments. And there's some automation improvements we can make. Eventually, we want to make a video game and an RPG. So, in conclusion, we're developing an immersive universe, and knowledge graphs play an essential role. So, any last questions?
Are these to keep or to take?
Okay. And if anyone wants to support, we have an Instagram and a link tree. So you can go to our different social medias. We set a password to our website, KGC, because the pre-order period is complete. But if you're interested in any products, feel free to go on TetraverseTCG.com and input this password. And you can support us financially that way. Or you can just simply follow us on our social platforms. So that's it. Thank you.
Yeah.